3V is an older company based out of Italy. So they came to the US in the early 70s, and they grew naturally just because of the reputation of the chemical manufacturing and whatnot. But they recognized that they needed to get with the digital side of things. So they were looking for someone who had design background, branding background, web development, marketing, kind of quote unquote unicorn, so to speak, that could do multiple jobs, just because it was going to be their first investment in anything digital. They had just basically a kind of a brochure website that didn't have a lot of detail. Navigation was kind of messed up. So they knew they needed some sort of direction. They knew they needed some sort of way to track analytics. They never really had an updated branding manual. So I brought in the strategy portion of branding first, which I kind of insist on doing before I moved into any kind of identity. And I think I had one rule when I got hired, which was you can't change the logo. So I said, okay, I can deal with that. So, we sat down and did some group work with a lot of the leaders in the company, just to kind of pull a little bit of data from a strategy perspective, kind of framed out their values and mission and vision, did some competitive stuff, looked into purpose, all those key elements to building the brand, just so we could have some sort of a blueprint of where we wanted to go from there. So that's kind of where we started. I've used multiple, we'll refer to them as a CMS or any sort of customer relationship system or content management system. I've used a variety of them. And here there really wasn't any sort of a connection between the customer base and our ERP and anything to kind of give me some knowledge. So I kind of started from the framework of that with using the website as somewhat of the pillar of where we'd go, and then it would kind of branch out from there. So it was a really kind of a basic strategy of let's just get something online based on the brand. So I built everything from the ground up on WordPress and used some different theming applications that I've used in the past building other websites, really so we could have one sort of, we referred to it as a central source of truth. So finally somewhere we could see all of our primary products. They would be able to search the database and find what they needed. We wanted to implement some sort of a conversion form on the website so that we had some sort of trackable data from visits to website conversions to coming into our, at the time when we first started, there was no CRM. So we didn't have a HubSpot or a Salesforce or anything implemented. So until we had the website built, then we were able to actually move into the CRM because we needed somewhere to kind of track from point A to point B to sales. So it was web, it was getting social, it was starting to build a presence. It was basically just kind of cleaning everything up from the get-go. So through that, 3 or 4 month period, after the branding was done and I was starting to implement the new brand guide, starting to build a website, that was when I started to kind of reach out to find some people to help me on SEO. I knew that once I got, one of the things I mentioned when I was going through the process of getting the position was that I needed a resource for search engine optimization. That's kind of where we started. It was really basic, but it was, web, let's get social, let's get an email list going, let's get kind of the core things going and try to connect and bring in digital pull for inside sales. So we kind of created a channel to go to inside sales and then kind of go from there to the outside. It was pretty much testing the SEO company. If they've got good SEO, they're going to come up when I search for what I need. I talked to a few other companies around here, but a lot of them didn't have a niche. And I knew I needed somebody that was in that space to help me kind of get where I needed to be. And it wasn't just, it was more than a brand awareness play. I think one thing I really started to like was your team started talking about building content clusters and linking things together on the site, utilizing the blog and driving people back into the site to create more backlinks. And once we started to do that, things just started to grow even more. And then we were able to, through the process, we implemented a CRM on our side. So we implemented Salesforce. And then I implemented the Marketing Cloud account engagement side of Salesforce for my own use to start basically creating a full path to show web traffic to form conversion to prospect to lead and then onto the sales team. Once we got the forms updated and embedded on the site and they started to function naturally and we started to average I don't know, I think we're still averaging at least 10 to 15 prospects a month, which is pretty good in this industry. It's not like we're in a massive retail consumer brand where there's thousands and thousands of chemical manufacturers in the US. It is a little bit that whole needle in a haystack kind of thing. So when the site started to grow by itself and when the leads started to kind of come in and stay consistent over a couple months, that was kind of like, okay, things are moving in the right direction. Inbound leads went, I think they grew by like 100. I think they went from like 49 to over 200 in a year. I think it was almost like a 350% increase in sales opportunities for us. Organic traffic grew over 500% from the initial website that wasn't doing anything to the new site. We went from 0 keyword rankings to over 13,000 in less than 2 years' time. Everything is, when you see an upward hill, you know things are going the right way. So, and then I think conversions grew. Like I said, we're still averaging 10 to 12 conversions online on the website alone, just from the contact form. It also had a little bit of it's starting to have effect on some of our other channels. We use a chemical, some people refer to it as Google for chemists. Impact on that site has grown naturally with the authority. It's just been very transparent. I think we met every month to talk about wins and talk about adjustments, which was great. I had a serious comfort level from a technical standpoint when I think we got hit with 2 or 3 algorithm updates through Google over the course of the last 18 months. I was a little nervous about the first one because I watched one of those wreck a site a few years ago. So I was nervous, but then when it went through and we actually excelled through the algorithm update, that was a period of comfort for me. So then that kind of secured, okay, I'm not going to worry about that anymore. And I think things just became more comfortable. I mean, it's a topic like search engine optimization. You wouldn't think that you would have a monthly call to talk about that. I honestly had a great time every time I got to meet with Knowmad. I think it was just you guys treated me and the company that I was representing as more of a person first before a client and a customer. And I think that was just the winning way to do it.